Do a little intro. Looks like it's going. It's starting. Hey everybody, this is Derek Rogers with Arneon Media. I'm an SEO and PPC specialist, and I am here to interview the creator of a software called CORA for SEO analytics and correlation observations on rank, performance, and keywords for different domains and URLs and pages, I believe, too. If you don't know me, I've kind of been doing SEO for years, and I've been inspired by Chase Reiner, who's a white hat, or he calls himself a white hat SEO, and Josh Bashinsky, who's actually just south of me here on Vancouver Island. I'm in Nanaimo. He's in Victoria, which is about an hour and 40 minutes or so south of me. And he's also got a fantastic YouTube channel going with great content and awesome analysis from a scientific perspective, which is great to see. So anyways, I've been inspired by these guys to get my YouTube game on, and I'm starting off this kind of series of reviews and interviews with a bang, interviewing Ted Kubaitis of SEO Tool Lab, who's created the CORA software. And it is a fantastic, really cool piece of software. A couple things before I begin. You'll notice I'm looking down at my screen a lot because I'm controlling my camera views and everything going on. But this is a live stream. So that being said, it's being recorded and it will be available on my channel later after the show. I'll probably edit it a little bit for embedding on my website, and I'll have a link. You'll see a link to www.arneon.com/Cora at the top of the feed kind of coming through here. And that link actually points to my blog review of the CORA software, which is not out yet. So if you go to that link right now, it's just going to redirect you to the 25% discount link to get the CORA software, which is fine. I'll also have that link below in the description. Because it's a live stream, there's a potential that it could crash. And if it does crash, I'm going to switch this over to a YouTube Hangout. And what I'll do is I will post in the chat online here that link to the Hangout. So part of this is a demonstration of some actual sites. So we have some participants that have contributed on the White Hat Facebook group, and they've shared URLs and keywords to Ted to analyze on the air. And so he's just going to share what CORA is, all about it. And then what I would ask is that if you're asking questions on the live chat, that you hold those questions to allow those that are whose sites are being analyzed to be able to ask questions as the presentation goes on here. And then at the end, I'm going to open it up to more discussion. People can ask questions. I don't want this to go too long because, of course, long videos are boring and you just got to skip through them. So I consider myself a white hat. I'm probably a white gray hat. I used to be more black hat. SEO, if you don't know what that is, look it up, because everybody talks about it, but nobody really knows where they fall, and it depends who you talk to. But basically, I was at a white hat versus black hat symposium in Victoria this past summer, last year, and this is where I met Ted. And Ted was one of the presenters, and the way that symposium was set up, there was a white hat versus a black hat kind of boxing match presentation style. I kind of wish we had like a bell to ring between matches. It was kind of fun. And there was a prize, a $5,000 prize awarded to the winner of the weekend. And Ted presented very passionately with his CORA software and just the analysis that he's been doing. And it was awesome. He really, he should have won. He was this close to winning, I swear. He was so passionate about it. The winner snuck in there with a sneaky black hat maneuver of bringing a suffering child into the equation, and not that it was Erock, Eric Christopher, that presented, and he, what he did is he actually turned his award winnings over to this child that was struggling with cancer, which is just awesome. So it ended up being a fantastic event, and it's going to be happening again this August in Victoria as well, and I'll be sure to be at that. But without further ado, I'm going to switch it over to Ted here, and hopefully you can see him on the screen here now. Ted, why don't you go ahead and just kind of introduce yourself, who you really are. I'm going to ask you a couple questions, but if you could just start with your introduction.
Sure. I'm Ted Kubaitis. I'm the founder of SEO Tool Lab, and I'm the architect of CORA SEO software. And CORA is my baby. It's kind of how I have always done SEO. And it was always a manual process for me. And eventually I started automating that process, and people kept asking me, what tool am I using to get this data? And very quickly I realized there was an opportunity. Nobody was doing SEO this way, and this needed to be turned into a product. And so I'm very excited to share with you what I've been doing.
Excellent. I am excited as well. I have some questions for you. I'm going to ask you a question, and I'm going to get you to answer.
Okay.
One thing I was wondering, now when you started this at the White Hat versus Black Hat symposium, it was kind of right when you were launching the software, and so we kind of got to see it at the beginning there. You were also working full-time, I believe, and you developed this software. So why did you choose this software over a real job?
It's always quite scary when you pursue a dream. There's a famous quote, I don't recall who said it originally, but the quote, paraphrasing it, everything you want from life is on the other side of fear. And it's totally true. I totally believe in that quote. And for anybody who's always dreamed of starting their own business and getting out there and doing it, I'm not going to say it's easy. It's the hardest thing you'll ever do. But I love it. I just have the personality where I love a startup. It's the exciting place I want to be. So it's a no-brainer for me that, I would be doing another software company. And it's not even my first. I have a long history of startups. And this one by far is the one that most quickly turned profitable. I've never had a startup turn profitable so quickly. And the reason I think it has is because the need for a real SEO tool that delivers real advantage has never been greater. And so my mission before I did this software was to help SEOs. And I did that on the popular marketing forum Black Hat World. I would be in the White Hat SEO channel on the Black Hat World forums. And I built just a staggering amount of reputation helping people every day, one person at a time. And I've kind of carried over that culture into my software startup, where every customer of mine, 100%, has my personal contact info. So if something goes wrong, boy, do I ever hear about it. But
Nice.
the first thing a customer receives from me is my contact information. I send everyone an email directly. And so I've kind of carried on that culture of helping people one person at a time and delivering real advantage.
Excellent. I guess another question would be, I'm sure you get this question a lot, but it's about the monthly fee and what that includes. SEOs, there's so many tools for SEOs. So I don't recommend a lot of different softwares. This one I would recommend. I think it's an excellent software, especially for SEO agencies. But how do you answer the question about price objections, what the monthly fee is all about, what it covers? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, for people on the outside looking in, yeah, it looks like a very expensive tool, and how can it be justified? From the people who are on the inside and in the know, they realize that my company is just around a year old, and I'm already on version 4 of the software. I work very hard to keep improving this tool. And this tool has gotten more and more valuable in the hands of SEOs just over the course of the past year. And if you talk to existing customers and you hear about remember CORA 2.5 and remember when we got the roadmap, people are like, yeah, that changed everything.
Those were the good old days.
Well, they don't want to go back,
No.
but they love the advancements, and those fees, they help us keep up the pace. And there's a lot of overhead. Like I spend a huge amount of time in the code. I have to license lots of very expensive software to even be able to make the code. And I'm currently upgrading the internals. Like the next version of CORA is going to have embedded Chrome so that it behaves a lot more like Googlebot does.
Cool.
And it's going to open the doors to whole new kinds of factors that we can measure, and it's going to solve all kinds of problems that other SEO tools just can't get around.
So
And
it does have an embedded browser right now, does it not? Is that
it does, but it's not Chrome.
right? Okay.
And so, but these things, they take time, they take a lot of focus, and some of these components even take very expensive licensing.
Right. Yes, I can see that. Okay, so with this software, what's kind of the top 3 things that you can use this software for?
Well, first of all, you need to be able to measure. For far too long, SEOs have had a very terrible practice. Like if you were a contractor and you were building decks, wouldn't you want to know the measurements of the deck you're going to build? And wouldn't you want to take measurements to know if you've met them, if you've met the requirements? And wouldn't you want to stop building the deck once you've hit those required measurements? And we all know an SEO who's been building backlinks like there's no tomorrow. And I find these people and I'll look at their website and I'll take the measurements and I'll see that, yes, they have 250,000 backlinks, but their next nearest competitor has 322. And they could have spent that whole previous year where they did link building, working on a different factor or working on a different keyword. But since they didn't realize that they had taken the lead on that particular factor, they just kept over-investing.
Right.
And so we have to measure to avoid over-investment. Because the goal in SEO isn't just to get to the top of page 1. It's to get there as cheaply and most cost effectively as you possibly can. Because everything else is coming out of your profit margin. The next thing you can do with this is, because it's a measurement tool, it'll let you more accurately cost out your SEO. You can create rates for the factors that you know how to address. And then when you get your deficits on how short a page is on those factors, you can apply a rate to that quantifiable deficit. And because of that, you can more accurately cost out your work. Instead of doing the SEO one size fits all and getting burned by something that takes a lot more time and effort, you can see it coming and adjust the costs appropriately. And so that's a total game changer right there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. So are you able to kind of see, like there was a recent core algorithm update that came out on Monday, I think it was. And a lot of people noticed changes in their ranks and different things that were happening. I don't think any of my sites went down. They all went up, which is a good sign that it's, I'm doing the right things. But are you able to see things happening in those results and kind of see when an algorithm's happening? Or if there's something up where you see it across the board? I guess you would have to be analyzing a bunch of sites at the same time. But
yeah, well, you can. Because the way Cora works is you're always monitoring your keywords. And when there's an algorithm update, what will happen is the factors that are correlating will change. Different factors will be more strong, previous factors will become more weak. So if you have a history of keyword reports from Cora, you look at one keyword report the week before an algorithm update, and you look at a keyword report the week after an algorithm update, and you calculate the movers and shakers. So this factor is up 14, that factor is down 7. And once you have that data, you know how to respond to an algorithm update. And usually it's not as extreme as everyone makes them out to be. So most of the time when the people on Search Engine Roundtable are screaming that the sky is falling, I know exactly what to do differently, and it's usually one or two easy things to adapt to.
Right. Excellent. Okay, so final question from me at this point, and then I'm going to let you just go into it. Are you a white hat or a black hat?
Well, probably both. I don't think Google approves of what I'm doing. But it's white hat. It's my software is a tape measure. So if a tape measure is black hat, then I guess I'm black hat.
Yeah.
But the fact of the matter is we should all be measuring what we're doing. I mean, that's what gives us, something intelligent to work from, is that we've taken the measurements and we've, got some reasonable logic behind what we plan to do with those measurements. And the only alternative is to go back to, 2 years ago and earlier, where people just work without data. And it's all kind of shamanistic, let's roll the chicken bones to see if we're going to anger the Google.
You use that analogy of a tape measure, but I was thinking of it, and it's way more complex than that. And the way I kind of see it like, was it spectrography or chemical analysis, where you look into a different product and you try and determine what the ingredients are. And that's what I see your tool does, is it pulls out the recipe and says, here's the recipes these are using according to the latest visible and public factors. And it's more of an analysis of recipes. And then you can compare recipes and go, hey, I'm missing this ingredient. This is a key ingredient.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, well, I'm going to turn it over to you and let you just take it over. You can share your screen, and we'll go from there. I can see you're bringing up your screen now. I'm just going to switch to this camera. No, I will switch to this camera. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so again, I'm going to first tell you why CORA works, and then I'm going to show you what CORA is. And then we're going to go into some real examples that were requested within the past 24 hours. And regarding the examples, I was supposed to send out these reports to the people who requested them earlier today. I did not do that. I will send them out after, so you will get your report. And there was one report, my own mistake, got overlooked. So there's one individual who won't be in the analysis, but you will still get your report. So don't worry about that. But I apologize up front about that mistake.
No
so
problem.
Moving on, let's talk about proving stuff. So I had somebody in a very popular forum. Can I use bad language in this? Is it?
I would prefer not.
Okay. Can I go PG-13 or is that too far?
Yeah, or you can make your own dubbing sounds.
Okay.
This is software. Yeah.
So I had a person in a very popular internet forum basically say that I was full of it for, doing what I do with this software. And he basically said that I was totally wrong and CORA couldn't work because he searched his keyword and Google estimated that there were 2.3 million results, and a sample size of 100 results isn't enough to statistically determine anything. And I needed to address this. Like I knew that the guy was never going to read my response, so there's like no point, arguing with that individual. But I needed to address this because people need to at least understand why this works and why my customers are so happy. So let's take it out of SEO for a second. Let's say, what if Google had data for 2.3 million coin flips for a specific coin? Do you need a sample size of hundreds of thousands of coin flips to determine if the coin is fair? And no, most people would be satisfied by 100 flips. Because by the time you get to 7 heads in a row, you can be 99% sure that that's a rigged coin. And that's just at 7 heads in a row, just right off the bat. By the time you get to 100 flips in a row, you can be very, very certain that that's a rigged coin. And the amount of data that Google has doesn't change the number of samples needed. And so that's where this person was going wrong, is that we can find trends at a much smaller sample size than what he was suggesting. And when we look at a factor, like this is a hypothetical graph of a factor. And so we have, result number 10 going all the way to result number 1 on the x-axis. And then we have the factor measurement, which is the height of the blue bar. And these don't appear sorted. Like these appear in random order. So it feels like it doesn't matter that this measured thing is happening. Google's not sorting these results by this measured thing. And we assume with our approach that everything is not a factor. We expect the measurements to kind of be in a random order with respect to rank position in Google. Now, when we take the measurements and they look like this, then we think they're rigged. Then we think Google is sorting these results by these factors. And that's what correlation is finding the things that look rigged versus the things that look random. So in a way, we are just looking for rigged coins. So here's the tails and here's the heads we're looking for. And if we get a lot of heads in a row, then we're interested. And additionally, with this, you'll often hear the naysayers say, well, correlation isn't causation. And that is like being misused left and right. And what I've found is predominantly the people who make that argument don't have any data of their own. And what they're actually saying is, I'm justifying my practice of not using any data to back my recommendations.
Right.
Because the fact of the matter is that you're right, not all correlations are causal, but damn near all causal things correlate. So when you take a field of possibility like 520 some SEO factors, and you reduce it down to just the 2 or 3 dozen that correlate strongly, you're taking a field of possibilities and reducing it down to something where your guesses get so much better that it just works. And that's what my customers, and we have hundreds of agencies using this software, and they all love it, and they're getting great results with it. The reason they're getting great results is because we take that field of possibilities and narrow it down to just a few things that they should invest their time in. And so when we see this software, first let's talk about what it is. It's software for Macs and PCs. It's a measurement tool. It measures over 520 SEO factors. It measures them for the top 100 results for your keywords, and it outputs all that measurement data into a spreadsheet. So that's what it is. And the benefits, and we touched on this earlier, it lets you differentiate your SEO by having actual data to back your recommendations. You can know how your SEO is deficient from your higher ranking competitors. And I mean exactly. Factor A, you need 4 more. Factor B, you need 23 more. It's that specific. And you can more accurately cost out your work. And probably most important of all, you can know when to stop so that you can move on to other factors or other keywords. And how it works, this is a screenshot of the software. You enter in your keywords. And this works in Unicode languages as well. There is a current problem with right to left languages, but more than half of my customers are international, and there aren't any complaints about the left or right languages. The only caveat with this is that the user interface and the output are all written in English. So as long as you're okay with that, you can use Unicode keywords. So when you enter in your keywords and do a search, the first thing you'll see is that CORA highlights a bunch of things in the search results. These words in the search results are made bold by Google. And Google does that to say, look how relevant the search results are for your keywords. And that's really important because it's also telling us that these are the words that make your page relevant for your search term.
Yeah, right.
And when we collect those, we can see that there's a lot of variance. The keyword I entered was DUI lawyer Los Angeles, but it found DUI, DWI, singular and plural form for lawyers. It knew that attorney is a synonym. And when you go through, you'll even find that it does like entity recognition on prominent names of DUI lawyers in that city. And, it's somewhat sophisticated. It's not just your search terms. And people who are only tuning their search terms on the page, they're missing out on the whole thing Google is measuring for relevance, which is all these variations. So we call these matchwords, and they're very important to how CORA works. We track domains, and this is a new feature for CORA 3.7. We're currently on 3.8. The way this works is you enter in the domain name you're trying to rank, and CORA will customize the report for any result that is ranking for that keyword. So this is how you get the tailored information that you're trying to get at. You can localize to a city, and in the settings, you can localize to a country, and then the near button will work for cities within that country. But if you need to do that, there is the ability. If the page you're trying to rank is not in the top 100, the page button will force it to be result number 100. That way you can get comparable measurements. This is useful if you're ranking for something that doesn't rank well, or you're ranking a page that's new and has never been indexed. This is how you can get those comparable metrics. And then once you have your settings set, you just hit the Get Data button, and it takes about 2 to 5 minutes to run. Depends on how fast your computer is, how fast your network is, what settings you have enabled, and of course your search term. Like if you went into medical case studies that are just, absolutely huge documents, it's going to take more time to analyze those gigantic 40,000 word pages.
When I was testing it out, and I've been using it on several sites now, it seemed to take a long time, and then I realized afterwards that it was already done. So it actually is pretty fast. The only thing I had a tricky time with was the initial installation, and that's just because it's an unsigned dot executable or .bat program. So my antivirus is going, whoa, what are you doing? We're going to put this under suspicious premises for 145 hours, or I think it said 145 hours they were going to examine it.
Weird.
Yeah, and then I just bypassed it because I trust you.
I have a note to resolve that. I need to code sign my installer applications, and then that'll go away. So it's on my to-do list.
Yeah. Carry
on. So the first thing you'll see in the output is the roadmap. And this is probably where you'll spend 90% of your time in the CORA data. This is simply the factors, which are on the left side here, and your deficit, so how many more you need to add. And the roadmap only contains the factors that were strong correlations that were statistically significant. And they're in rank order of the strongest correlation. So surprise, surprise, term frequencies at the top. And, keywords and sentences, there we go. Our general, metrics of keyword stuff. Now, it's not to say that you take your keyword and you plaster it in, 877 times. Because if you remember, we were talking about matchwords. Let me go back. So we are talking about all those variations of your search term that Google calls out as relevant. So when we talk about a large number of, add keywords to something, we're talking about a combination of any of these matchwords. And CORA will give you a list of those. And so it doesn't have to be your search terms. You can make it look a lot more natural by using these variations. Let me jump back. So when you see keywords in sentences, whenever we say keywords, we mean any of those variations. Right. There are times when you'll see things refer to specifically your search terms. So it'd be like search terms in sentences. In those cases, we mean exactly your search terms. But whenever you see keywords, it's any of those variant matchwords. And so, yeah, just looking down this, we could see that we're being beaten by long form content. We're short 1,800 words. We need to add, almost 14 kilobytes more of text content to this page. We need to tune our headings, need to tune the title. This number of US phone numbers is interesting because when you see a line item like this saying to add 29 more phone numbers to your page, that's a hint that you're dealing with a directory site. So each listing has a different phone number, and those directory sites are near the top. So surprise, surprise, there's a correlation with the phone numbers. So you get clues about the data when you look at some of these. This is what the measurement data looks like. So when you get it, it'll be one factor per row. And then these orange ones, those are the correlation coefficients. We'll come back to those in a bit. We got the average measurement on page 1 here. Then we have results 1, 2, and 3. And then our result, which was result 22. So it's highlighted in yellow. And then the practical maximum, which is what we recommend that you initially start to tune to, is defined by results 1, 2, and 3 in the page 1 average. Whichever of those 4 things is largest becomes the practical maximum. And we calculate the deficit by subtracting your measurement from the practical maximum. And these deficit numbers are the exact values that you see on the roadmap. So add 2 more, add 877 more. The overall maximum is the largest factor measurement found in all top 100 results. Now, CORA will hide data because it only shows you what it thinks you can consume. So it'll hide anything it doesn't think you need to see. So if you were to select all the rows and columns and right click and say unhide, it would look like this. So this is the spreadsheet zoomed way out, so it looks like digital noise. But you can see all the 520 some, well, we tried to show them all, they still wouldn't fit on at this zoom, factors going down. And you can see all the top 100 search results and all their factor measurements. And then ours right here. And we have the page averages for the top 10 pages, but we only show you page 1. And so CORA knows to hide everything it thinks you don't need to see. You don't need to see all the measurements for the sites ranking below you. You don't need to see the factors that weren't strong correlations. And so it'll minimize the grid and show you the stuff it thinks you'll be most interested in. But the data's all there. You can unhide those columns and get to the whole thing.
Nice.
And then in the output, we also create charts. So in this chart, we chart for every factor there is, all 520 some factors. So in this chart, these are by page. So page 10, page 9, all the way to page 1. And then we have the average factor measurement by page. And so we can see the orange, which is our track domain, we have a below average gain for page 3 because this blue line represents the average factor measurement by page. So we're below average with a page 3 gain, and we need to be above average with a page 1 gain. So we're down here, but we need to get up here. And we like it when the orange line crosses over the blue. Then we know you're in the right territory. And same thing for this other one, keywords and sentences. Here we are with a below average page 3 gain, and we need to have an above average page 1 gain. So if you need to demonstrate to someone, what we need to do, or why it's going to take more time, or why we need to cost it out the way we're costing it out, we can very exactly quantify the work we need to do. and show them where we're trying to get to. So we are here and we need to get there, and it's going to take us 10 minutes per sentence, and we've got a lot of sentences to get through, so it's probably going to be a week or 2 weeks of content work, something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you can really demonstrate it, you can explain it, you can rationalize every aspect of it. So getting into the first example, we have 3D laser scan. And these were all the match words that CORA came back with for this search term. So when we talk about keywords in general, we're talking about any combination of these terms. And so here's the roadmap data. So it wants more content. Your word count is short by 2,100 words. You need to use 133 more of those variant keywords and sentences. This one here, keywords in the LI tag, that oftentimes means you need to make your website navigation more keyword rich. But sometimes, because these LI tags, they're often used with a jQuery library for your menus. But they can also be used for things like your products per page on a category page and things like that. So it might mean that you need to increase the number of products per page in some cases. And so sometimes these things can have easy fixes if you can understand how they're being used on the pages. Yeah, 66 more sentences. We need to tune our headings. So it seems pretty straightforward here that, we need to, in general, have longer form, keyword-rich content, and we need to do a better job of tuning our headings. And I'd probably just start there. Like, it's easy to get overwhelmed. People will get a roadmap that'll have several dozen things on it. Just pick 5 or 10 that you can knock out quickly. And oftentimes you'll see a ranking improvement just by knocking out the easy ones. And you can always come back and do a second pass later. And remember our goal, it's not just to get to the top of page 1, but to get there as quickly and cost effectively as you can. So knocking out the easy ones first is smart SEO.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the second half of the roadmap, because it's quite a long roadmap, had to break it up. So privacy policy should be there. Images without alt text. So yeah, images on the page. Number of images with alt text, you needed 16 more.
On that privacy policy, when it says has privacy policy, add one more, is that basically saying it doesn't have one? Like it needs
it's looking for a link on the page that says privacy or privacy policy.
Gotcha.
And it's not finding a link to that. And Google has pointed out in their quality rater guidelines that type of trust information is important.
Yep.
So out of those, 2 slides worth of factors, I would reduce it down to these ones. I'd cherry pick these because by solving, 2 or 3 of these, you're probably solving most of them just right off the bat. So if you took the largest ones and tried to fix them, you'd probably solve almost all of them at the same time.
Now, so I noticed there you have the word content. Do you ever get clients that are concerned about how much content is on their homepage? They don't want it at their root domain page. They want to have it on other pages.
Well, yeah, and this might not have been a home page. So the page we're looking at here, showing the domain, but the page that we're actually looking at might have been a nested page in the search results. So you can see that in the results tab of the output. It'll give you the exact URL being measured. But URLs in Excel can go on for quite a long time. So we just let you know the website that was being measured, and you can get the exact URL from the result tab. But yeah, when you see an outlier, you need to go investigate. If you see something like, wow, that's an awful lot of content, how are my competitors doing that? Well, go look at your higher ranking competitor that drove up this measurement, find their URL in the results tab, and go look at that page and see what they're doing.
Right.
And by doing that, you can start to compose a glossary of SEO tactics. And I do this as a part of my audits. I will go through and find out how the competitors are getting the measurements they're getting, and I'll take screenshots of the code and of the components on the web page that are driving up these measurements, and I'll show it to the client. I'll say, this is how they're getting those. And then the client can look through it like a menu. They can say, I'm going to take 2 from column A and 3 from column B, and that's how we're going to respond.
Right.
And so it's really important to do that competitive analysis where you look at how your higher ranking competitors get away with the measurements they're getting, see what they're doing.
Nice.
And so looking at the chart, the website for this keyword had a below average gain here, and they need to be above average, so they're missing a lot. And again, below average, need to be above average for page 1. So, it tells a pretty easy story here. You're being beaten by long form content, pretty aggressive long form content.
Right. Excellent.
So the next keyword, North India tours. So a lot of variant match words that Google was pointing out. And on this one, there was a ton of correlations. But right away, we find an outlier. So that 312 more for number of images with alt text. That's a ridiculous number of images with alt text on a single page. So that would be something we'd want to look at. So we found an outlier. Here it is, that 312 more. So I'd look at the overview and I'd see that, it's coming from this result number 3. This makemytrip.com website drove up this measurement to the point where I need to add a lot more because of it. So I went to the results page, which is this part below, and I find the URL for number 3. So I can go look at this North India travel packages webpage. And so I get to the page, and it's a directory, and this is one of the listings of like hundreds on this page. And I'm looking at it going, well, it doesn't quite add up yet, but then I click on this big image, and this little gallery thing shows up with a bunch of images in it. And I look at the source code for it. Every listing on that page has its own embedded gallery of images. So each listing has 10 or more images with alt text. So it's just a multiplier on how they're doing it. And so now we know exactly how this website got away with all this alt attribute tuning. So if you wanted to, you could compete in a similar fashion. Or if you think this is a total violation, you'd know how to complain about it. Or at a minimum, you can at least understand how they're doing it.
Right.
So for keywords in the body tag, so this factor, this kind of represents the overall usage of the variant match words in your page content, the visible page content, so excluding the head tag of the page. They're down here with a below average page 8 gain, and they need to be above average for page 1. So they have work to do as far as using their terms on the page.
So,
Keywords and sentences, same way.
Ted, just a
Yep.
question on that. So when you say a page 8 gain, like your chart is showing there, um, what do you mean by that? Like they're showing up at page 8?
Yeah, they're ranking on page 8 for this
Okay,
term,
I gotcha.
and their factor measurement is below the average for page 8. So we can
Right.
see the page 8 average right here, and they're below average for that page 8 game. But they don't want to play a page 8 game; they want to play a page 1 game.
Yeah.
So they need to get this measurement up above the page 1 average.
Excellent.
So the next example, the tarot card reading. So a whole lot of variant match words.
Lots of competition here, I bet.
Yep. And now probably the most things correlated here. So we had, these entries on the roadmap. We had these entries on the roadmap. And then we had all of these entries on the roadmap. I mean, there were a ton of correlations. And I want you to make note of this because the next example isn't this luxurious. So this is awesome because you get so much to choose from for finding that low-hanging fruit you can knock out quickly. So I love it when there's a ton of correlations. It usually means that there's a lot of people competing with on-page SEO when you see it like this. And so that means that you have real good data.
Mm-hmm.
So I would take those 3 slides and I would reduce it down to, just these things myself, because these are typically easy to knock out. So a lot of headings need to be tuned. You need a little bit more long form content. So short by 600 words, about 24 more sentences. And so, yeah, if you could solve, the word count, if you could do proper long form content that was broken up into logical sections by headings, and the headings kind of flow with like an outline of your content. If you made a topic outline of the content on your page, your Roman numerals would map to your headings. And then all of this, if you did your content that way, all of this would just kind of fix itself, and your content would probably be a lot more readable. So do proper writing, do outline format, and then work your actual content into the outline. And doing these things to these degrees would help quite a bit for your relevance.
Nice.
So we get to the best altcoin exchange. And this one was a real problem. So we got our match words. Here's all that correlate. Not very much at all. And the things that correlated were kind of weird. So has, discuss integrated number of LinkedIn accounts on the page. These are weird correlations, and there's not very many of them.
Wow.
So I went back and I reran it with the off-page factors as well. So it's like, let's find out the backlink counts from SEMrush and Ahrefs, and let's see what the rest of the story is. Again, not much correlating. So this is really kind of unusual. So I went back and I reran it again. I left the on-page and the off-page stuff enabled, and I switched a new feature over from being at the easier deficit strategy of calculating based on the practical maximum. There's an advanced setting now in CORA that lets you calculate versus the overall maximum. So I ran with that on, and I got more, and I got sensible things to show up. And so this is kind of a clue. So this was stating that either there's nobody competing in SEO for this search term, or at least not a significant number of people actively doing aggressive SEO for this term. Or this is a search term that's being manually curated by Google. And both of those things are fairly remote probabilities. They're unlikely things to happen in a normal search term. So I could see it that because it's related to, these coin offerings, that maybe Google is treating it differently, part of the your money or your life, especially with all the pump and dump schemes going on in the coin markets.
Right.
So I could see Google, applying a manual filter into what gets to rank for these kinds of terms. And at the same time, it might be a keyword where people just aren't competing. They kind of make a page and hope it works, which, if that's the case, then if you tune your on page pretty aggressively, you should have a pretty easy time ranking. So it could be a very big opportunity. Now, it's hard to tell just from this data, which of the two roads that is. So if it were me, I would go all out. I'd create a partial match or an exact match domain name just for this target search term. And I would highly tune the on page. And then I'd put like 25 really quality backlinks to it, and I'd see what would happen. And if it, shoots up in the rankings pretty quickly, pretty easily, then there's no competition. But if it can't even break in at all, then it's probably manual curation on Google's side.
Interesting. So, would you say that he's probably done a good job of optimizing as well, and that's why there's not much showing?
Well, I can't say that because there isn't enough statistically significant correlations. It's like all the things that are traditional factors don't correlate here.
Okay.
And the reason that could happen is that those factors aren't in use. If a human being is manually picking which website goes number one and which website goes number two, then all the correlations for those ranking factors are gone. They don't work. They don't correlate.
Yeah, interesting.
So manual correlation will break, or manual ranking will break correlation. And the other thing is, if nobody's doing SEO, if nobody thinks they need to compete with SEO for these terms, then these pages will just happen to rank where they happen to rank, and weird things will correlate. So you want your keywords to have some competition so that you can see the algorithm at work. But if nobody's tuning their headings, if nobody's tuning their titles, then yeah, weird things will happen. Now, when I opened up this from going from the practical maximum, which is only looking at the top of page one, to the overall maximum, which is looking at, things across all 100 results, we got some things that made sense. It started to make more sense. So we see headings here, which we see a lot of times. We see the HTML tag, we see search terms and sentences. These things make sense, keywords and sentences. These are the things I like to see there. Leading keywords and H1 tags. But it didn't appear in page one, and I'm wondering if it's just a very low competition keyword, or is it getting special treatment from Google because it's a your money or your life type of situation.
Interesting. Excellent.
And I'd like to point out that anyone who views this webinar can get a 25% discount. So put that out there.
Nice. That's actually showing. That link is what the link at the top of the screen links to right now. It's just a redirect right now. it'll eventually, that arneon.com/Cora will eventually have a review, probably within a few days. I should have it up. Just a review and this video embedded there as well for people to go to and just find out more about this awesome tool. So, Ted, are you you're basically done at that point with the presentation?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. That was awesome. So, there you are. You're back. Excellent.
Yep.
Okay, so there were some questions that came in, and actually, let me just see if I can bring it up here with the questions. I've got, yeah, hopefully that's visible on the screen. There was some questions, but because of the delay, it's really hard to do it live. While you were running through, Aditya asked, I'm sorry if I got your name there incorrect. You asked, and you have the tours, India tours page, I believe. And you said, what should I do to rank on page 1? That's an excellent question.
We'll send you the report, and the first thing you want to do is you want to eliminate your factor deficits. So on the roadmap, there'll be the deficits, and you'll want to pick the ones that you can address, and you'll want to eliminate those deficits. Because by eliminating those deficits, you're improving your ability to be stacked ranked relative to your competitors. Because it's a misconception to think that Google is ranking your website. It's very unlikely that any human being at Google knows anything about your website. Just because there are so many websites, they can't be reviewed by human beings. So what's happening is Google is taking measurements, probably in a somewhat similar sense to how we're taking measurements, and they are stack ranking all of your cohorts for that keyword. And they're saying, based on the measurements we took, you would fall in at this point in the rankings. So when you address those factor deficits, what you typically see is your rankings go up. And it doesn't happen all the time, but I've had numerous times where customers said, hey, Ted, I knocked out 5 or 10 of the easy ones, and 24 hours later, I was ranking 8, 16 places higher. It doesn't always happen, but it's fairly common that it can be a very quick turnaround. You could be ranking better within a day or two. So definitely, by all means, when you get the report, knock out the easy ones first. Try and get a quick result.
Excellent. I had a question too. You were going through one of my sites, one of my client sites, and I get this a lot, and it's kind of something that I'm wondering if you've seen before, but and I kind of alluded to it earlier, but quite often you'll find websites that rank with very little content on their main page. Now their subpages will have tons of content. They'll have the whole skyscraper thing going on. They'll have all types of different content, but on their homepage, they'll be ranking number 1 for the key term or in the top 3, and not much content on those pages. And I just wonder if you've seen that. And if you're able to, if you've seen any kind of tips with that, like what they might be doing that would cause Google to see that as a quality site, even though it doesn't have a lot of content, and put that page at the top.
Yeah, it's important to remember that there's multiple buckets of factors. And so your on-page tuning is one bucket, but then your off-page is typically another bucket. So if you think about what Google cares about measuring, they care about authority. And the quantitative basis for authority is backlinks. So you got your authority bucket, and local citations might be in there as well, things of that nature. And then you have your relevance bucket, and relevance is different than authority. And relevance historically is measured using an algorithm called term frequency inverse document frequency. And the short of that one is that whoever tends to say it more tends to be more relevant, which is why keyword stuffing is exploitable. It's why Google has to manually penalize keyword stuffing to this day, by the way. It is not solved. It is a fundamental architecture of how relevance works in search engines. And then there are other buckets too that we theorize about, like trust, which would have to deal with, do you disclose your true identity? Do you use SSL certificates? Do you honor trademarks and copyrights correctly? Do you provide contact information? Do you disclose your address and your hours of operations? And according to the Quality Raters guidelines, all these types of factors go into a trust bucket. So they're potentially important to the algorithm. And then there's another theoretical bucket called quality. And it's been hinted that the quantitative basis for quality is click-through rate and repeat visitation and things of this nature. But our industry is only beginning to experiment with those concepts.
Interesting. Well, Ted, there haven't been other questions in the chat here. One of the sites we couldn't get to, which you'd mentioned, and that was the medical bills site. So you're going to send out that report. Are you going to send it, or do you want me to send that
out? Which would you prefer? I'm happy to go either way.
It might be good if you do, actually. You can just make a comment in there if you have any comments to add, and send it out. So with that, we're just over an hour, which is good. I didn't want it to go too much over that. I'm going to close it down here, but I really appreciate it. I love the software. What I love about it is it's not dealing with, pie in the sky or things that you don't necessarily know are facts. It's looking at what's happening right now, and it's not even it's just correlating data and presenting it, and then you can kind of decide and go through it and go, this is definitely something I need to change, or my client's site or my site is definitely missing out on this portion, whereas another software may just give you the pie in the sky information that's not accurate. You don't, it's giving you just keyword information that, it's just dealing with data that's kind of not really there. So I love that this is analytical. It's dealing with, you said there's 520 plus. How many are there different factors on there?
There's more than 520. I've lost count. I've recently added a couple dozen more for CORA 3.8, and there'll definitely be even more by version 4.
Nice.
And keep in mind that we don't know what factors Google uses.
Yeah.
So whenever I get ideas, whenever I get recommendations on factors that might be factors, we code them up. And even if they prove to, not be a strong factor at this time, we leave them in because we never know how things change in the future.
Yeah.
So if it makes sense to industry professionals that something might be a factor, then we try to include it into the suite of tests.
Excellent. The next interview I'm doing is with Kyle Roof. So he's going to be presenting his side of things with Search or SEO Intelligence Agency. And so he's very analytically doing some scientific tests to test for different things. So that'll be excellent as well. So Ted, Is there any final words that you have for us before we go?
If you have questions that you didn't get to ask, please just reach out to me. You can go to the SEOToollab.com website. The contact form will come straight to me. Just mention this show and let me know your questions.
Excellent. And it looks like Aditya is asking for his report to be sent out too. So,
oh yeah, we'll send that out right away.
Yeah, so you're going to send it to all of them, right?
I'll send it directly.
Okay. Excellent. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time, Ted. So this is Derek Rogers signing off with Arneon Media, where our slogan is we lift your spirits by raising your ranks, and we're turning lambs into lions online. So put that in your pipe and smoke it. Alrighty. Thank you, sir. Have yourself a great night. Bye for now.